I would say three things. One is, work hard. Second is be persistent, right? Third is do things differently from others, right? A
Mm.
lot of times people want to just do like what everybody else is doing, and that's just going to put you on a normal category, right? But if you look at things like where you do things differently from everyone else, that makes you different from everyone else, and there's a better chance of you breaking out to reach your goal.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the CEO and founder of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks and everything else related to their business. And if you ever need help with anything, feel free to reach out to us at strategymeeting.com, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, James and Kandasamy or
Yes,
Kandasamy.
Kandasamy.
Kandasamy. I was close.
Yeah, very
And
close.
James originally was from Malaysia. Went to college in Malaysia. Got a double
Mhm,
E degree.
mhm,
Did a few startup jobs in college, and then moved from Malaysia to the U.S. And in the U.S. was on some temporary assignment. Went back to Malaysia after a period of time. Then came back to the U.S. and went to Austin, Texas, and did a full time gig. I think worked in the semiconductor
mhm.
industry for
Yep.
quite a while, and then I think went back to Malaysia if I remember, and got an MBA, and then did a few kind of software startups, did some side hustles and nighttime gigs, and getting it all up and going, and then got into real estate and been doing that for the last several years or last few years, and raising money with private investors and whatnot. So, with that much as a introduction, welcome on the podcast, James.
Absolutely happy to be here, Devin.
So I gave the kind of 30-second quick run through of your journey, but let's start to go back. Tell us a little bit about being in Malaysia, going to college there, and getting your double E, and we'll pick up on your journey from there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I was born and raised in Malaysia, right? So I did all my entire education over there, except for my MBA, which I did, somewhat with in Australia, right, with the
Mm.
University of Adelaide as well. Then came to the US on a manager visa, which is called an L1 visa for a company here. There was a need.
Mm.
It was an intercompany transition, and when I came here, I mean, I was already coming here a few times before that on a relocation. So I really like some cities and the U.S. in general, right? So we moved here.
Before you came into the U.S., you graduated with a double E degree in Malaysia, and I
Yeah.
think you mentioned that you worked a few startup jobs while you're in college, kind of as you're getting the double E.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, startup, yes. While even I was doing degree, I was trying to do, I was selling shirts, buy for what, $10 and sell for like $3 each or something. I mean, not $3 each, maybe less, maybe more than that, but I can't remember. But I was selling shirts. I was trying to do my some kind of physics workbook while during summer break in college, and trying to sell that while
Mm.
everybody was enjoying summer break. I was like spending my summer break writing a physics workbook to sell, right,
Mm.
which did pretty well. I mean, I did make money, but of course nothing big, like but it does make 4x 5x income than what I was doing. I always like to do something to make money, but I never understood the entrepreneur spirits inside me until
Mm.
recently, right? Because even when I was working on a big, large semiconductor company while even in Malaysia, I didn't do much startup while working because I was so busy working. Right? But when I came to the US,
Mm.
I was trying to do a software startup here, some web page, and
Now, one quick question. So you come to the U.S. Was that because you found a job opportunity? You wanted to come to the U.S. That was a
yeah, I wanted to come, and I had a job opportunity as well, which is intercompany transition, right? So I
mm,
definitely wanted to come here. I wanted to go to. I had few options: going to Australia, going to Canada, going to the US, right? So I
mm.
had all PRs lined up, but I ended up coming to the US. Yeah, I really want to come here because of the how capitalism works here, right? And
So now walk me through that.
mhm, mhm.
Did you apply to the job in the U.S. and then once you get accepted, you get the green card, and is that kind of how you came in, or
Yes,
how
yes,
did?
correct, correct. But
Mm.
but the thing is, I didn't apply. So this was intercompany, right? So basically, I was in a I was in a
Mm,
company where I had a headquarters in the US and I was in Malaysia.
mm,
And I was deciding to leave the country to some other country. So the option I gave to the current companies, and either I go to the US or I go out of the country, right?
mm,
Because I really wanted to get out to another country at that time, just to change my life, right? There is certain limitations in Malaysia in terms of growing and how capitalism works compared to other countries, right? So I really want to get out. So I had a few options like Canada and Australia,
mm,
and usually the current company doesn't allow me to come because then everybody will start leaving from from low
mm,
cost geo to a high cost geo, right? So um, but I think I made the case that my skills are needed at the headquarters here,
mm,
and they definitely had a problem here. There was a big problem in one department in which they thought that they can use my skill. So it was a mutual understanding that I'm going to come to the US on a visa or within the company. So it's the same company, but I came on a visa.
Now,
And
one, and I know I'm interrupting, but just have
sure,
a
sure,
couple
absolutely, go ahead.
interesting questions. Now, when you started with that company, was it the idea, hey, I want to go for it, I want to go to the US or Australia, other places, and so that's why you sought out that job originally in Malaysia, or was it just, hey, I'm working for this company, I see this opportunity, why not go for it? Kind of which order was that?
Well, I was already in Malaysia and I was deciding to leave the country, right? So, but I thought, okay, why not I move to the US within the same company, right? The company in Malaysia, they don't really support it. They're very against it because, as I said, they do not want like everybody moving from this satellite city,
Mm,
satellite company to this headquarters, because that's the reason why they created all the satellite, offices, right, all over nation, right? These large
mm,
companies they set up, in a lower cost geography, to reduce labor costs, right, and also to ease manufacturing and also as
mm,
well. So, but the thing is, I had an option, right? Either I leave or I come through the company to the headquarters. So finally, the company was gracious enough to allow me to come within the company to come to the headquarters, right? And they had definitely there's a need because there was a job that need my skill, and I wanted to come as well.
Hmm. Okay, so no, that makes perfect sense. So you decide, okay, you've got this opportunity, come into the US, think it'll be a great experience. You convince a
Hmm.
company, you come
Hmm.
to the US, you work for a period of time. Now, how long were you with that company? How long did you work in the US? Because I think eventually you went back to Malaysia after a period of time, right?
No, no, I did not go back after that. I mean, in the beginning, when I was
Okay.
relocating back and forth, I was going like 3 or 4 times. But once I
Oh,
came
okay.
here permanently, I was here permanently. So I've been here almost like 11 years right now
Yeah.
in the US.
So now you come to the US, you work for the Malaysian company, and how long did that last and kind of or where did
Well,
you go to from there?
yeah, it's not really a Malaysian company; it's a US company, but they had a base in Malaysia. In Malaysia,
Mm,
so it is a US company. I was there for almost 2.5 years,
mm,
right? So I got my green card within 4 months because I came on a special visa,
mm.
which is called a manager visa, and I'm a Malaysian, so our visa takes very very quick.
So now after that, after you worked there for you said a couple years or two and a half
Hmm.
years or so.
Hmm.
Now where did you kind of transition from there? Where did you go from there? Kind of how did what made
I
what
went to
caused you?
another semiconductor company, and I worked for 7 years there.
Mm,
And that's where I started start venturing into different businesses, right? Because
mm,
sometimes working in one job can be very monotonous and can be pretty boring. I mean, especially, I mean, I can't blame the companies, right? But they can't be doing new products all the time,
mm,
right? They can do same product but small tweaks, same product, small tweaks. Because if they do new product, then they have to test the markets, manufacturing complexity, so they can't do that. So there's not a lot of new development that's happening in these big companies, right? Unless
mm,
you are an R&D. Even in R&D, a lot of products doesn't really make it to the sales part of it, right?
mm,
So, and every time I go for these small companies, I like to go into this small department which has a lot of problems, because I like to solve all any problem. I don't want to go to a department where everything is done,
mm.
right? Everything is processed and you just go and execute whatever people have created. I like to go and create stuff, create processes,
Mm. No,
and
I think
putting.
there's a lot of probably with the engineering background and the and everything else, there is kind of that mentality of, hey, I want to actually grow, build, do something rather than just, hey, everything works fine and now we're just kind
Yeah,
of in maintenance mode. There's something
yeah,
to be said for kind of building and growing something. So
absolutely.
so now you did that for about 7 years,
Hmm.
and then what kind of caused the transition after working for them for that period of time?
It's just there's a big aha moment when I went to the second company on my first day. I was sitting after this is like 3 years after being in the US. First 2 years I was busy working. The third year I went because it was same company, right? Malaysia company, US company, same culture,
Mm,
same process. So I didn't really feel different. But the third year when I went to another company in the US, which is I'd never been, it's a different company. My entire life, I only worked in one company for 16, 17 years. And
mm,
now I'm in a new company, right? So when I went to that company, I talked to my boss came and sat down with me and he asked me, how's life and all that. And he told me, well, you're going to be working here for another 16 years because we have all the stock options. And I say, why is that 16 years? He said, well, you have three kids and, college is very expensive here, right? And I asked him how expensive it is, 200, 300. When he said 200, 300,000 per kid, I was like, wow, really? Because my
mm,
engineering degree only cost 5,000 US dollars for entire 5 years.
mm. Hey, that's a
Education,
great deal.
absolutely. I mean, that's like unheard deal over here, right? Here it's like what 300,000, at least minimum 100,000 right, on an
Mm,
in-state college, right? So,
mm,
so I didn't even know that colleges cost so much in the US when I came here. That was one aha moment. I said, wow, I cannot continue working my W-2 job,
mm,
right? Because W-2 job, it is what it is. You have a limited amount of pay rise,
mm-hmm,
you have a limited time, and you have always have someone working above you, you're working for someone. So I said, okay, I need to have another job which can get me some other income as well on top of my W-2 job, right?
mm-hmm,
And W-2 job is like, okay, yeah, you have a base pay, but they have this golden handcuff, right, where they give you a lot of stocks, in the next future years, right? They
mm.
give you like 5 years, 3 years, so they want you to keep on staying with them. It's called a golden handcuff, right? So that you don't really leave, right? Because you always have, oh, my stock is gonna vest, or my stock gonna vest, so you don't really leave, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the perpetual, hey, there, and I certainly I don't fault them for it. They're trying to say the best talent we're trying to keep on as long as possible. They have the institutional knowledge, they can get things done and do it well. And so there's
yeah,
certainly a motivation, but at the same time, you're kind of always in that catch 22 to where you're saying, okay, in a little bit longer after these vests, I'm gone. And then they keep offering it. So you eventually just have to say, hey, I want to go my own way. I'm going to do my own thing. And here we go.
yeah, yeah, correct. So you always, I know I'm a bit, everybody's trapped in the W-2 job, right?
Mm,
And that is I know that is existing. I needed that because I'm very new in the US. I mean, keep in mind I was just only 2 or 3 years in the US
mm-hmm,
at that time, and I cannot leave my job and go and try to do things on my own. So I said I'm going to do something on my own on my spare time. So I was trying to do some software stuff. I'm trying to do some web pages, to do some math tutoring. I had that idea. Every day I work late hours after work,
mm,
tried to do that. At the end, I realized I'm not the best programmer out there. I mean, you need a big resources to do that, and I can't do this alone. I mean, I was not programming everything myself, but I was doing the concept, and I had offshore, people from overseas people who are trying to do programming for me. But it just takes so much of work, so much of resource to do a really good software, right? So after some time, I saw a lot of new software coming. I said, okay, I'm gonna shut this down because this is not gonna work. I'm not that good, or I do not know that much of resources or money to go and hire really good programmers to do it in house. So I gave up on that, and after that, we tried to do
mm.
stocks trading. Well, I had that ego, how difficult stocks going to be. If you're an engineer, you're probably really good at math, you can solve this algorithm, right? So I start reading all kind of book, candlestick, line charts, all kind of analysis, and try to put all that into a context. But at the end, I realized that stock is actually just playing with your fear and greed.
There's a
This,
lot of truth to that. I think there is some skill involved, but even just reading what the tea leaves are, what's coming next, how the market's going to
yeah,
react, how other people are going to react, everything else. There's a lot more emotion and a lot more,
yeah.
you know, non-math type of things that have
Non
to be.
math, yeah, you can. I mean, unless you're. I'm sure a lot of your listeners are going to say, "Well, I made money with stock," but my question to them is, did you make money with your skill, or you were just lucky?
Yeah, and I think there's a combination of both. There's a lot of luck involved as well as some
Yeah, yeah,
skill,
yeah,
and it's hard to delineate out which is which.
yeah,
And sometimes
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
combination of both.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not saying stock is bad, definitely not. But I'm just saying for my personality, because I like to look at my phone. With the phone nowadays, you can look at every few seconds, every movement, you can see it, right? My
mm,
personality was like I just keep on looking at my phone, and I lost all my peace in life. Right, you don't have a peace because stock is so volatile. I mean, I'm sure people are very good at stock when they do long-term trading, And even if they do short-term trading, they're probably good at, they're probably good at something, right? But I don't know. I read some article finally after losing some money on stock. I read that 98% of the individual investors never really make money on stocks.
Mm.
And it's, because all these investors, all these institutional guys play out the small investors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So except for the GameStop issue that recently came, that was like, okay, now I thought, okay, because every time I buy stock, at 9 o'clock you buy it, and then after that 10:30 start dropping like crazy, and I got panic, I sell, and 11:30 start going back up again, and that happens consistently in all the stocks I buy, and I know there's
Mm.
big institutional guys playing the small guys out,
Mm.
right? So I gave up on stocks because
So you gave
stocks
up
too
on
fast for me.
stocks. So now, how did you? So you're kind of trying to say, hey, where am I going to land? I want to do my own thing. I don't want to hit that glass ceiling to where I can only make so much and I can only have so much, influence type of a thing. So how did you kind of land on what you were finally going to build or where you're going to put your time,
Yeah.
money, and effort and be successful?
Absolutely. I mean, I met another engineering manager who said he's buying rentals. He's buying once a year. I said, what is that? Okay. So that's where I started looking at houses, right? He said, buying a rental. Okay. I used to do some flips back in Malaysia. I mean, just one or two flips, not a lot, but I know real estate appreciates if you buy it right. So he was saying he buys like one house a year. And when I did the math, okay, you can make like 8, 9% on a normal house with the amortization, people pay
Mm.
down, the resident pay down, you get a good loan, 30-year fix. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I can do this slowly, right? I can buy like 10 houses. So I say one house can make nine. Okay, I can buy 10 houses, right? But I also had very small amount of money. I only had 50,000 to start with when I came here because I didn't have any IRA, I didn't have any 401k when I came here, right?
Mm.
And where I came from, the pay was given was really good pay, but it was just nice for me to start. And every month we just burn through all the money that we make in a W-2, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I only had like 50,000. So with 50,000, what can I do, right? Then I start researching. Then I found a way to buy a house really, really cheap. Even with 50,000, you can buy like few houses, right? So I use that method to buy these houses where you buy and you remodel and you
Mm.
refinanced and you take out your money. So you can basically buy houses with very, very low down payment.
Mm.
So that was the method I found, and started buying single family houses. And now we are buying apartment complexes. After
So
13 houses, we went to apartment complexes.
Mm. So in other words, you figured out, hey, okay, I think this is a good opportunity. I'm going to get into it. Don't have an exorbitant amount of savings or money I can just invest. So started out smaller or slower and figured out what you can do, flip those and kind of built it up as you went along. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that's a fair statement. That's a fair statement. Of course, you need to find a mentor to teach you that, right? Because
Mm.
it's not like anybody can do this. I'm not saying anybody can do this, but if you had a mentor, you can just have a shortcut
Mm.
because they can just tell you, right? So I got a mentor, and he taught me how to do single family rental flips, and later on we moved on to apartment complexes.
Mm. So now you've got Achievement Investment Group. Is that kind of built on top of the commercial real estate, and kind of how did you get into investing for others or building an investment group, or kind of how did that evolve?
Well, I mean, Achieve Investment Group is just a name when we started it on a single family.
Mm.
And once we hit like 13 houses, we said, okay, this is too small scale. And because on the loan side, we can get like up to like 10 loans, and after that you have to go to commercial loans, and it was too much work for single family. So we moved on to apartment complexes, buying apartment complex, which is much larger, but I didn't have the money as well. So I had the single family houses which I built 400,000 of equity,
Mm.
but buying an apartment complex, you need a lot more than that, right? So then I realized about something called syndication, where you can syndicate money from a group of investors,
Mm.
right? There are SEC guideline to a 506B, 506C. There's different guideline, and I used that guideline to raise money from some of my friends and families to buy
Mm.
our first apartment complex.
No, and I think that it's interesting how you going through building things and making it bigger. It takes a bit of time. It's always kind of the everybody thinks it's the overnight success. Hey, you had the money, you invested in one house, and now you're rich and you're a millionaire and you can retire because you just got lucky. But I think kind of almost antithesis or opposite to the stock market is there's some skill and work and building involved in flipping houses, so to speak, but all in real estate investing. But then it's also kind of a slow growth to really be able to get a sizable portfolio and be able to actually have that income generated. So
Mhm.
now, as you kind of look towards, a future forward looking a bit, kind of where do you see the next phase of your journey heading? Is it continuing to do more deals, bring on additional investment, bring out outside people, keep it more internal? How do you kind of see that going?
Yeah, so right now we have like 2,000 units under our management, 10 properties, 10 large complexes, average 200 units per complex. So moving forward, what we are looking at is basically to go more. I mean, as we want to buy more because we want to focus on one asset class because there's so much of nuances, right? I mean, so much of detail, so much of analysis, so much of algorithm to really make
Mm,
sure we get it right. But I want to slightly expand it to ground up construction as well, where we do, building from ground up because an apartment complex becomes so expensive that it makes sense to just build one, right? Rather than go and bidding and buy something very expensive, we rather just build one. So we're trying to go more into ground up construction. We're trying to go more into affordable housing as well,
mm,
where we can do something called a low income housing tax credit. But we have been doing all market rate all the time, market rate housing, and we'll continue to do that. So yeah, keep on buying more deals, being more efficient. We just hired a few really good corporate staffs to come and help us. One COO who just came in. We have an executive assistant, and we have an analyst I just hired. And with all these people that I've hired, I hope that we can keep that pipeline full of deal coming in, deal
mm,
being managed because we also manage our asset, right? So we want to keep on doing deals because there's so much of capital looking to place money in real estate right now, and it's hard to find deal that makes sense. And I just hire all these people so that we can keep on doing deals. So we want to grow and keep on doing deals.
No, and I think that sounds like an exciting place to be. And it's kind of the hey, we're gonna figure out how to expand our reach in additional markets,
Hmm.
or at least have additional opportunities, and also just grow the business and make it even more successful. So definitely
Absolutely,
makes
absolutely,
sense. So
absolutely.
well, as we wrap towards the end of the podcast, I always ask two questions at the end of each podcast or each episode. So we'll jump to those now. So the first question I always ask is: along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Worst business decision I made. Probably not getting educated before starting.
Hmm.
I think my first house. I mean, I didn't eventually buy it because I was supposed to meet up with my mentors the next week, but this week I said, okay, I was so rushing to go and buy deals, and I just put one deal under contract without knowing how to analyze it very well, and that deal didn't do well. But
Hmm.
so make sure that you get educated before doing this kind of big deals.
And I think that it's a good, and whatever industry you're in, getting that education, that understanding. I mean, too often you think, oh, I'll be the exception, or oh, I'll go with my gut, or oh, I'll just I'll learn along the way. But that oftentimes, while it works on television and movies, when you get into reality, it's very seldom are you just able to wing it and just go by your gut and just try something. It's much better, I think, to do that education part, understand what you're doing, why you're doing, what are the risks, can you live with the risks, what's the downside, what's the upside, and what is the industry, and kind of start to answer all those questions, and it increases the likelihood of success. And yet it's so easy to, when you get into a deal or when you get into an opportunity, to just want to get going and want to jump into it, and you never do that. That education piece is oftentimes so critical. Well, as now the second question I always ask is, so if you're now talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I would say three things. One is, work hard. Second is be persistent, right? Third is do things differently from others, right? A
Mm,
lot of times people want to just do like what everybody else is doing, and that's just going to put you on a normal category, right? But if you look at things like where you do things differently from everyone else, that makes you different from everyone else, and there's a better chance of you breaking out to reach your goal, right?
mm,
And be persistent. Yeah, of course you have to be persistent. That's the test of
mm.
the time of the game. That's the name of the game, right? No matter how much you try, you have to keep on trying different stuff until until you hit your goal. So work hard is you have to overwork everyone else. That's no choice there because everybody is trying to come up in life, or a lot of people coming out in life, and
Mm.
you want to really break out. You have to do the hard work.
No, and I think that that's certainly a great piece of advice and something people should take to heart.
Hmm.
Well, as we wrap up, first of all, just as a quick heads up for all the listeners, we are doing the bonus question of your top intellectual property question that you have. So stay tuned if you want to hear the answer to that. But otherwise, if you're wrapping up listening to the podcast before they go, what's the best way for them to reach out to you? To if they want to be an employee, they want to be invest with you, they want a mentor, they want to be a investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you and connect up?
Yeah, I mean, my website is achieveinvestmentgroup.com. Achieve is like achieving a goal,
Mm,
ACHIEVE, achieveinvestmentgroup.com. They can come and register on that website to be in touch with me. If you want to be a passive investor, invest with us. I have a lot of engineers, a lot of doctors, a lot of business people, a lot of real estate people investing with me because this is passive income because we do the main work and they
mm,
are the passive investors. On my website, there's a link called Invest with Us. Come and click there. And there's a form. Fill up that form, and you'll get access to my calendar. And I would say, you guys definitely should read up my book. It's a best-selling book in Amazon
mm,
and top 15 book by Jim Cramer the Street for real estate investing. It's called Passive Investing in Real Estate. You can get it for free at passiveinvestinginrealestate.com.
mm.
Passiveinvestinginrealestate.com.
Well, awesome. Well, I definitely encourage everybody to reach out, connect up, find out more, and use the different avenues that you mentioned. Well, as we wrap up, first of all, thank you for coming on the podcast. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell, feel free to go to inventiveguest.com, sign up to be a guest on the podcast, and share your journey. If you're a listener, also one, make sure to click subscribe so you know when all the awesome episodes come out, and two, leave us a review so new people can find us. Last but not least, if you ever need help with the strategy or with strategy for your business, with patents, trademarks, or anything else, feel free to go to strategymeeting.com. So thank you again. And with that, we'll now transition over for all of you that are continuing to listen and want to hear James' top intellectual property question. Let James flip the table a bit, ask me a question. So with that, what is your top question?
Sure, sure. So, I mean, so like people like me, we are in real estate, right? So I'm not doing, silicon design or what, even though we were doing at some point. That was my engineering job, right? So I know there's
Sure.
a lot of IP protection that we always apply and all that. But coming
Mm,
to business side, where we have built a brand, right? Like we have
hmm.
built a brand like achieveinvestmentgroup.com, right? So, um, and how do I protect my brand?
Yeah, so real estate. So, as a quick or 30-second summary, there are kind of three different parts of intellectual property. There's patents, trademarks, copyrights. Patents are going to
Mhm.
be for inventions, widgets, something that does something, which typically doesn't apply to real estate. Although we do
Mhm.
have a few real estate clients that have made software platforms or other ways to make something more efficient, to do something new. You think of not that it's our client, but an Airbnb, where that's in the real estate realm, but they certainly have a lot of technology and ways that they do that. That would fall under patents. But if you're saying, hey, we're a real estate firm, we're really just investing, we're looking for good deals, then that's typically going to fall more under trademarks, which, as you mentioned, are branding. So then the
Mhm.
question is, what is your brand worth? Is it one where really everything is word of mouth, where everything is just you have a good reputation or people are coming to you? Then your brand is important, but it's important for a different reason. But let's, really you're going to look at and say, if somebody were to come along, knock off our brand, copy it, or otherwise do something similar, is it going to hurt or affect our business? If the answer is yes, then you're going to say, okay, then we're wanting to protect our brand. And love him or hate him, one of the top real estate brands would have been Donald Trump, right? Or Trump,
Mhm.
Trump with all of his real estate. Whether you agree with him or not, that was a lot of his value in his brand that he built his real estate company, was based on the the Trump brand. And so that was where they leveraged it. So if you're saying, hey, we're going to build a big real estate company, and however you follow the political state or spectrum or anything else, you're going to say we want to build a brand where people know it, where they invest in us, they know the quality of our real estate, they know the quality of our investments. Then you're going to protect the name with the trademark. And so that's where you're really, a lot of your value is because one is the people you hire, the deals that you can find, and then the white reason people trust you is because of your brand, and that would fall into trademark. So that's typically when you get into real estate, unless you have the technology side or something that's an Airbnb or something that's driver or analytics or something that's going to be worthwhile. Otherwise, you're going to typically protect or go into branding, which would be more into trademarks.
Got it, got it. So if let's say my brand is trademark, right? Let's say Achieve Investment Group's trademark, and one day I find someone using that.
Mm-hmm.
How what do I do? How do I approach them? Tell them gently, you should stop it, or do I get people like you to send them some letter?
Yeah. So, when you define gently, that's probably a good way because there's different. You can be very aggressive. Somebody you feel infringes your trademark, you can just simply go out and file a lawsuit. You don't have to do a cease and desist. You don't have to reach out to them. You can just file a lawsuit. One day they get those papers, and then you both show up in court and duke it out, type of a thing. If you want to take a step back at you and saying, "Hey, I'm not here to file suits. I don't want to, go through that time and expense unnecessarily." One is you can always reach out to them, and they may not be aware of you, or they may be a small individual, or they may just be getting started, and you may be able to find an agreement to where they stop using it, or they pay you a licensing fee or something of that nature. If after you reach out to them, they typically kind of blow you off, or they say, "No, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to listen to you." Then you have to decide how much you want to ratchet up. And a lot of times that's, engage a law firm, you send a cease and desist letter, you put them more on notice, put a little bit more teeth behind it and let them know you're serious. And then you give them a period of time to decide whether or not they want to respond to the cease and desist. They aren't legally obligated to, but a lot of times they're saying, "Hey, they've engaged a law firm. I can see where this is headed. Let's try and I'll take this more seriously." If they blow that off, then that is where you have to file the lawsuit. You have to say, "Okay, how much is my brand worth? How much are they, hurting my brand?" In the sense of saying, "Hey, they're a small, tiny individual. They're not hurting my brand very much at all. And it's probably going to cost me more to go to lawsuit than it is to just let them go." Then you may say from a business perspective, it doesn't make sense to invest. On the other hand, you may say, "Hey, we are seeing a lot of customers that are getting confused or going to their brand because they think it's us or anything of that nature." Then you're going to go and you're going to file a lawsuit. You're going to say, "Hey, this is costing us tens of thousands, hundreds of $1,000s a year in lost business." Then you're going to have to say it's worthwhile to invest in getting them to stop using it. So those are kind of your few options, everything from nicely reaching out to them all the way to lawsuits and kind of a cease and desist letters in between.
Okay. Can I ask one more question?
Sure, go ahead.
So let's say on domain name, right? Let's say we have a .com and someone take the same name, put a .io or .net or what, right? So
Hmm.
that can be confusing for a lot of investors, right? I mean, a lot of people, right? So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, domain names they're a bit of still the Wild West. They're starting to get some case law behind it or some understanding. I mean, there isn't anything if you don't go get all, and there's so many now that you can do, whether it's .io, .edu, .gov,
Hmm.
whatever, a whole bunch of things. And so, typically when you get in your domain name, you're just saying, "I don't want to spend all the money, or it doesn't make sense to try and get everything possible." Because even if you got all the last .com, whatever, then they change one little spelling in it and then it starts all over, or they drop one word off or they add one word. So it's kind of always that, popping up. And so when a lot of times when you get into domain names, if it's simply just a domain name and they're doing nothing else in their branding, nothing else to confuse, nothing else to use your brand, nothing else to use the same words or anything else, it's typically going to be difficult to just simply stop them from using the domain name, other than to just be much better at SEO and be able to just simply outrank them, such that when people search for them, they never find, your competitor is so far down the list that there's never confusion. Now, if they get the domain name and they start using that domain name and it is confusingly similar to yours, so now they have the domain, but all of their material on their website and everything else is using your brand or similar to your brand, then you can still infringe on trademark. So that's generally, if it's only the domain name, you probably have, there are some avenues, but it gets fairly more complex and more complicated. You're better just to compete with them on SEO and to outrank them. But as soon as they start using any of the other branding stuff within their website material or anything else, that's when you can kind of engage them even, or engage them further.
Awesome. Awesome.
All
I think
right.
that's
Well,
that's
with
all my
that,
question.
James, I appreciate the intellectual property questions. It's always fun to hear what other questions people have and have the table turned a bit, and you guys get to ask me questions. So
Yeah,
appreciate coming on the podcast. It's been a great time and been a pleasure. And wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
absolutely. Thanks, Devin, and I really hope I add value to your audience and listeners.
Absolutely.